Hi, here is my first face and body paint project for Halloween. Now, I wouldn't call this pro, but sometimes if I just want to relax, I'm going to a Halloween party today and I just want to have fun. I don't necessarily want to, focus on the hard work of doing a pro face paint on myself. However, I do plan to do that, one or two more times this Halloween. My next face paint projects that I plan to do would be the David Bowie's pink stripe going down his face, the German Shepherd that I've been promising to do, and then there's one more design I might do for one other Halloween event I'm going to. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll surprise all of you. So, I have the equal sign body paint on each arm, and this is Wolf. This is like a gray wolf face paint design that has like little black markings, because a lot of different wolves have different splotches on their faces. I do have whiskers. They're not as long as cat whiskers though, because canines do have short whiskers. So I thought that the short whiskers might be okay, might be cool. It might be a cool touch to a canine face paint. And, as you see, my neck and chest are painted gray as well. So I do plan to get the wolf paint into a more pro design in a while when I have time to. So I'm going to be having a really cool Halloween this year. I will say that I don't technically celebrate Samhain the way pagans do. A lot of Wiccans believe that the male aspect of God dies during Samhain and doesn't come back to life in this world until winter solstice, whereas the goddess is ever present. I disagree because I practice four-footed Judaism, and in four-footed Judaism, the male aspect of God is always in this world and not, doesn't die and go to the spirit world for a little bit. However, it would be a lie for me to say that there are no spiritual aspects of Samhain or Halloween for me. I consider face and body painting to be a spiritual ritual. Like I've said, painting the entire face and then adding the neck, the chest, and the shoulders really adds to the energy of it. And for me, face and body painting is a sacred act, similar to how it's sacred and ceremonial to many tribal people around the world. I like to do the indigenous type of face and body painting. So that's one way why Halloween is spiritual to me. And I would even say that I call it Samhain. I say I celebrate Samhain and I celebrate Halloween. One thing I do after all the spooky, crazy fun, definitely the wild animal aspect of acting wild, I technically act wild and spontaneous all the time because I'm a otherkin and therian. A lot of humans, not so much, so for them Halloween is a way to get away with more than usual. But, it's still fun to go to the parties, to eat lots of unhealthy food that's specifically for the season, sometimes to drink a little, and, it's fun. It's all around fun. Now, also, after all that fun, a lot of times late at Halloween night, after I've had all the fun, while my face is still entirely painted, I'll wander to a little corner in my den, and then I'll do a quite sad and solemn, remembrance rituals for all the victims of the pagan burning times, human and non-human and hybrid alike. Because, as I've said, it's not healthy or okay to deny that the burning times happened. The reason that, Starhawk, Doreen Valiente, Lori Cabot were not accurate about it is that they were inaccurate about specific, when it happened, when it didn't happen in history, and how it happened, and where, and what, and the details. However, those writers, I really have my admiration because they did, through their writings, expose the horrific, the horror of the burning times. And also authors like Barry Lopez, who wrote of wolves and men, and people who wrote about, like Desmond Morris, who wrote cat lore about cats. Those authors also exposed the horrific cruelty directed towards wolves, cats, and other non-human animals. So to say that lots of human, non-human, or hybrid creatures were not hurt or killed, because of an earth religion, and during the burning times, is just wrong. It really is no better than denying the Holocaust, I would say. And yet it doesn't matter that to me that it started long, long ago, like in the first century AD, and never mind that it went on until, certain times it went on until the 1800s, when it was finally, stopped. And never mind that, it was spread out over all those centuries and didn't happen right away. It wasn't a mass killing that happened in a matter of years like the Jewish Holocaust happened. The fact is, it was a horrible genocide of all kinds of creatures that did happen. And all those creatures, those victims of the burning times, were killed or tortured, and they were killed in the most horrific ways possible. Innocent creatures, just because they practiced or were the sacred animals of, of the old religion of Europe. So it was the old religion, not the way, again, not exactly the way the authors of Wiccan literature have usually said it, but it was Europe's indigenous spiritual tradition, and many different traditions at that. So I will say, after all the fun is had, I like to dedicate the last part of Halloween to just, remembering, those who died, those who are celebrated and that people dress up as on this day. And Samhain is the pagan Day of the Dead. It's the Celtic pagan day to remember those who have died and who have crossed over to the other side. So what better way to, attribute to the pagan burning times, especially since witches and black cats and bats and werewolves are, people dress up like those creatures, and people have fun pretending to be those creatures, or us we might dress up like, to be more like the creatures that we actually are. So what a better time of year to, like, to pay tribute, to those of us who died centuries ago, than to some of us who even, died just 200, 300 years ago, than to devote the pagan Day of the Dead as sort of a day of mourning. And it's in the last part of it, not so much a day, but the very last part of Halloween or Samhain night, a few late hours of mourning for those of us who were victims of that horrible massacre. So, in addition to being scary in a good way and wild, spontaneous, fun, eating some, food and drinks that you wouldn't usually eat, on a regular basis, it's also, I'd say Halloween also has like a sad, sort of heartbreaking, and very comforting side. When I cry like that, yeah, I definitely cry. I sob thinking about those victims. And, sometimes the tears, are what help wash away the face paint. That's a funeral rite that, in a lot of tribal cultures, they'd paint their whole faces black, as I've mentioned before, and cry at the funeral until the paint was washed away by tears. Sometimes, that I could do that with the paint for Halloween that I have on too. So, yeah. Now, and as I've said before, the pagan burning times were greatly admired by Christopher Columbus, and they helped, inspire the African slave trade and the Native American genocide, and all three of them were, genocides greatly admired by Hitler and helped, inspire the Holocaust. And all of this horrible stuff is still, relevant to today. So many of most of the world's global issues, in fact, the problems in the world faced by the world today come from the four biggest, worst genocides in history, which would be the burning times, the Native American genocide, the African slave trade, and the Holocaust. So what we need to do is learn from those, what the whole world needs to do is learn from those horrific genocides that bigoted pure humans, perpetuated, and to realize that for the human race to realize as a whole that kind of shit is not okay. It's not okay to hurt or torture or kill somebody else because you're afraid of who they are, because they're different from you, because they shake up your concept of what normal should be. So, so that is why I have this equal sign body paint too. Like, we're all equal on this planet, We are all, one. Every species, every creature, every race, everyone, regardless of their socioeconomic status, the poor, the homeless, the rich, people who have, and animals who have been dealt a good card and those who have been dealt a bad card, and those who have been dealt a bad card don't deserve it. So God, I do believe God exists, but the reason God doesn't you just right away help everybody who's suffering is because he wants us to help ourselves. It says in Ecclesiastes that the Lord helps those who help themselves, and I really believe in that. It's that, and of course, sometimes if you're in an unfortunate situation, if you have a box on the street and nobody's helping you and you're homeless, then, sometimes it's hard to help yourself. But I'm not blaming, like the poor or victims of poverty for not helping themselves. What I am blaming is the large number of people who aren't in utter poverty, who are in a better position to not help to help those who are less fortunate themselves. We are all on Mother Earth together, and we all, the power is ours. Like Captain Planet says, the power is yours. The power is ours to repair the planet, clean up the environment, solve all these global problems. And, hope one day we will, and then when we do, we'll have great Halloween and Samhain celebrations to celebrate, the acceptance for everyone, whether they're pagan or differently abled or a black cat or, somebody whose skin is darker than white. So, yeah, so everyone, and then it will still be, a day of mourning, because I believe when the world is saved and the new interspecies Jerusalem is restored, in the physical world there'll still be death. The physical world I would see as it should be would be the terrestrial interspecies paradise, meaning that conditions are way, way more better than they are now on Earth. There's no extreme, unbearable suffering or, pain, physical or emotional, for anyone, human or not, or hybrid. So that's what I really have hope. I'm cautiously optimistic that we can have that world that we want to. And when we do mourn the dead, it's because, the physical world, the terrestrial world, does have, death. And then the spirits of the dead, I believe, go to the celestial paradise, which is the afterlife that the souls of the dead go to, which can be all manner of afterlives of your choosing. But if the world is saved as it should be, and there's no suffering, nobody has to worry about possibly, if they want to reincarnate, no one would have to worry about potentially going to another life where they suffer horrible physical or emotional pain in the next life. No one would have to worry about becoming desperately poor in the next life or getting a horrible disease. And I'm hoping that we can all work to make the world, the place that we want it, most of us want it to be. So, with that heavy stuff said, hope you all have a happy Halloween or Samhain, if you celebrate it. And I'll see you guys later when I have my next face paint up.